I want to finish by telling you a story about a young baby that was born in the year 1820. And she lived until 1915. She lived 95 years. She was born a healthy baby. When she was 2 months old, she had some kind of an eye infection. Keep in mind, this was in the early 1800s. Her parents took her to a doctor that turned out to be a fraud. He did not have a license, did not know what he was doing. He put a compass on her eyes that blinded her. At 2 months old, she was perfectly healthy and she was blinded at 2 months. Her father died the next year. She was reared by her mother, spent a good bit of her time with her grandmother. She was put into a home for the blind before she was 10 years old, stayed there for decades, later became a teacher there. Could have been a very bitter person. Could have lived a life of bitterness. But yet she chose not to worry about the things that she could not change. They found out that she had a gift really for poetry. By the time she was 8 years old, she started to write a lot of poems. Later, people would come along and they would take those poems and put them to music. She also was an accomplished musician herself. She went from being a student at the School for the Blind to being one of the teachers. She became very famous in certain circles. She knew several presidents by their first name. She was a close friend of President Calvin Coolidge, who worked with the blind before he became president. It is said that she wrote over 9,000 poems. That there were days when she would write 6, 7, 8 poems a day. They put many of these poems and made hymns out of them. In fact, every song that we sang this morning was written by this lady, whose name was Fanny J. Crosby. Probably the most prolific hymn writer of all time. And I don't care what church you were brought up in, if it has a hymn book, I would challenge you to look at the back at the authors and look up Fanny J. Crosby, and I'll guarantee you there will be more songs by her in that book than any other author. A person who had many reasons for being bitter and living a life of bitterness, yet chose to do what she could do and let God do what He could do. Fanny J. Crosby.